The situation of my divorce and my relationship with my daughter is actually something that people want to know about, but they feel uncomfortable asking me about. And that's peculiar because for me, it's not something I'm uncomfortable talking about. Really not at all. And this comes up, to my mind, most strikingly with the people who are now in the gray area between being just fans of the channel and really being personal friends of mine. Because there are quite a few people now that may have been watching the channel for 2 years, 4 years, whatever it's been. And to a significant extent, they know me. But every so often, they kind of mention, look, they say something like, look, man, I don't really know what's going on with your marriage and your situation with your daughter. Or they say, look, man, I only know what's on your YouTube channel. And then I also get kind of positive feedback where I mention it or give some kind of update. And people say, oh, wow, I'm really glad to hear that. Or they really appreciate knowing. Because apparently it's something they want to know about, but they never ask themselves. So no, I'm hard to offend that way. But sure, every so often people make, presumptuous or denigrating or insulting statements. I'm not impossible to offend, put it that way. The purpose of this video is not to explain the dry legal details of the current situation, although some of that will be mentioned in passing. And it's not to talk about like my relationship with my ex-wife or really even my feelings and my perspective on it. I really want to talk about the kind of unfolding identity crisis that I see in my daughter's life. And obviously, I don't just have an outsider's perspective. I have the perspective of someone who, with real detachment, is trying to interpret what a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, now a 6-year-old is telling me. And to some extent, the things she's telling me are things she's really programmed to say by her mother, but only to some extent, and you never know to what extent that is. So just pause on a much later note as an example of this. After one of our visits with Alexandra, I got a series of angry emails from my ex-wife because she felt Alexandra was coming home and making inspirational statements about veganism that we had programmed into her. That wasn't the case at all. On that trip, Alexandra really had her own interest in veganism and she was very plucky about it. And to give an example, this is real kind of 5-year-old reasoning, but not so unreasonable. She went back and said to her mother that if she ate a healthy vegan diet, she could eat broccoli every day, but then it would be fine if she ate chocolate-covered bananas. So I had to write back. I was like, look, this isn't what I taught her, but, she's putting the pieces together. The chocolate-covered bananas that in France have a very small amount of chocolate. It's very thin coating. It's mostly just a banana. It's a lot healthier than most candy and desserts people give their kids. I don't know, kid. You got it all figured out. Yeah, it's true. So, but that wasn't something we'd sent her home to believe. It's something she had figured out for herself. It's a theory she made up in her own mind. We didn't even hear that from her. And she went back and told her mom proudly that she'd figured this out about veganism. So, and another more imaginative example from that same trip was that she'd kind of invented this whole story in her mind about Mr. Rogers, the children's TV actor, that Mr. Rogers from children's television, and questions about his health and why did he have a heart attack? It's like my ex-wife sends me these angry emails as if I'd programmed my daughter. I was like, look, it's coming straight out of her imagination. My daughter's an imaginative, strong-willed kid, and she makes up her own material on this. I did not, it doesn't come from me. So it can be misleading to assume that your daughter is repeating stuff she's been told. But both in terms of what she knew and what she did not know, what information she's been presented with and what she's been deprived of, we've gotten to see over the last 2 years approximately how my daughter's perspective on who I am has changed. And one relatively tangible element of this story is the extent to which my ex-wife has just deprived my daughter of access to the toys that I've given her. So over these years, I sent her a lot of toys. I'm not going to get into details, but on this last trip, my daughter was really confirming, it had come up before in the past, that I'd given these toys to her or sent these toys to her, and then she'd never see them again. She'd either just see them when she was with me, or in some cases they were sent in the mail, and then they would disappear entirely. And there was one toy where she really fought with her mother. She loved it so much she wanted to keep it. She wanted to keep playing with it. And her mother kept coming with pretexts to take it away or give it away to charity. So this very strange struggle to erase my presence from my daughter's life, erase the memory of me, or erase questions about me by physically removing any toys, any reminders of who I am from their lives. So that's one palpable element. Now, a little bit more impalpable is this. The first time we saw my daughter, it was the least emotionally complex, but also maybe jarring and troubling in its own way, because she literally did not know who I was. So there were a lot of strange and emotionally memorable moments where she said things like, "I love you. You guys are really great to me." Like, she really had a great time playing with us and going to the park and going to the beach. We did normal kid stuff, going to the Ferris wheel, this kind of thing. She said, "I love you guys." She even said things like, "I wish you were my real parents, but it's sad. I wish I could meet my real father." My father who came to see me in Germany. There was this distant memory of me coming to see her when she was in Germany. And, we tried to explain to her, well, it didn't just come up once. No, I actually am your real father. I am the same man who came to see you in Germany. Now, most generously, you could suppose that she was confused about this just because nobody told her, but there was just silence about me, that she wasn't actively coached to think that I was not her father. But again, as this period of 2 years goes past, in the later visits, it seems on the contrary, that the darker truth is that she's really been actively told that I'm not her father. And now finally that someone else is, in terms of what is her name and what is her identity and what have you. So in the first couple of visits, Alexander was really tremendously positive and tremendously enthusiastic about Melissa as her new mom. Very, very enthusiastic about Melissa. And, little kids are shallow. Look, I'm sure part of the reason why she's enthusiastic about me being her dad are the presents I've given her. The toys and the video games and going to the beach. And when she spends time with us, we don't have to force her to go to school. We don't really have to force her to do anything she doesn't want to do. We can just have fun. So there's a real contrast between weekday parenting and holiday parenting or vacation parenting that way. I know we have a kind of unfair advantage in that sense. In terms of how she perceives us as parents, that we're nothing but fun and laughs and good times, and maybe when she's with her other family, she's forced to do some chores or forced to get ready for school or that kind of thing. But yeah, little kids are shallow. A lot of her enthusiasm about Melissa was because Melissa was so beautiful, and she told us that every day. But she was aware in relation to Melissa. She was aware that Melissa was not her genetic mother. One of the ways we heard this was that she said she wishes that Melissa was Melissa. She actually said things like, "I wish Melissa was my DNA mommy. I wish I had your DNA. I wish you were my real mommy. I want it, So she said this kind of thing. And again, we not only did we not coach her to say this, but we really cautioned her. We said, look, you don't want to hurt the feelings of your biological mother. You don't want to say these things. And again, as nicely as possible, we said, no, Melissa loves you. We're here to play with you and have fun with you. But no, Melissa is not your real mother. Melissa is just my girlfriend, whatever you want to say. And we talked about that in future. Also, in the first two visits, she did say that she wanted me to marry my ex-wife. I think just the first two visits where she talked about that. And it was very cute and harmless. I mean, that didn't seem to be psychologically burdened. But she just said that she loved me so much, and she thought that I should get back together with my ex-wife. And, she came up with some creative ideas about who Melissa should marry, that we should all stay together, the four of us or something. But, so she had some ideas like that. She was really positive. She wanted us around. But in the first two visits, that was a difficult process of getting her to recognize that I was her father at all. So these are spaced out by approximately 6 months, each of these 4 visits we made together. So I thought we'd hit a kind of harmonious mutual understanding by the third visit of the 4, which is why the 4th visit was so disappointing. So Melissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on the third visit, it seemed to me she really understood that I was her biological father, that her mother, has in effect married another man. They're not legally married, but she has this boyfriend who lives in the apartment with her, and that man, I guess helps her get ready for school and does other, parental things from day to day. She seemed to really clearly understand. Yeah, on the third trip, there didn't seem to be a lot of anxiety about that one way or the other from her. She seemed to be really kind of confident and clear-headed about that. I guess the other thing that went on in the background, too, this was related to her fascination with the death of Mr. Rogers. She had really just figured out what death was due to the death of my father. So she had met my father, and she was really aware that my father had died and was very interested in that. That seemed to be the first time she figured out the meaning of the word death. And that inspired her to think a lot about how many grandparents she has. You remember once I went into a bakery. I was carrying her on my shoulders, and she was sitting on my back. And she announced proudly to everyone in the bakery how many parents she has and how many grandparents she has. That she she was. But this is her regarding the divorce positively in the sense that this extended her extended family. So, yeah, it was really shocking and disappointing when on the fourth visit, all of that progress seemed to have been reversed. And what we now seem to be encountering, and again, there's a kind of dotted line linking this to the issue that she was given a bicycle. She never saw the bicycle. She was given an electric musical keyboard, electrical piano. She never saw it even once. And the gifts we'd given her that she did see briefly while she was with us, she'd then never seen again. They were taken away from her as soon as we'd left. And her struggles over this one toy that she managed to hold on to despite that. And she began that trip with us telling us in no uncertain terms that she was not my daughter, that she never had been my daughter. She denied that her name was the same as my name or was the name I'd given her. So that's been another long, slow controversy boiling. Only on the fourth trip did she insist that her last name is not the same as my name, which legally it is, by the way. But on the three trips before that, there was a lot of tension surrounding her first name. Now, whether there are any ill intentions, my ex-wife has given her a first name, an informal nickname or first name, that she's been taught to regard as her real first name. And it is not. And I'll just say it's a Russian first name, or it's an Eastern European sounding first name. And she's now being told that she's going to learn Bulgarian, move to Bulgaria, and become Bulgarian. And she's been given, she believes or she espouses, that she has this Bulgarian, Eastern European sounding last name. Again, from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't sound much different from a Russian last name. These are Slavic last names. But the first name, that predates my ex-wife's relationship with the Bulgarian man. It seems to go back a long, long way. Not to put too fine a point on it. So maybe they're from about the same period. I don't know. So this business of giving her a different name, giving her a different identity, and then apparently, her mother is coaching her through or rehearsing with her this transition to a point of view of rejecting me as her father and claiming that someone else is her father only. Now, the plot twist is that since the fourth trip, just in the last couple of months, my ex-wife dramatically decided that she would rip up the custody agreement that we have. So the custody agreement, the word agreement, nobody agreed to anything. We have a court order. We have a judge's judgment that tells us when I have custody and what to do and so on. It's a writ from a judge. It wasn't agreed to by the two sides. It was created in a totally hostile situation. And it governs our separation, not our divorce. As I've mentioned repeatedly, my ex-wife refuses to divorce me. So she's directly refused to receive paperwork. She's refused in various ways. And again, in the whole history of this case, her lawyers have never once been willing to negotiate with my lawyers legally. It would be called, they've never made a proposal to my lawyers. They've never discussed terms of divorce. They've never been willing to proceed with a divorce, neither amiably nor a hostile divorce. In France, there are 2 tracks for divorce, one cooperative, one not so cooperative. So we have a situation now in which my ex-wife has said she doesn't care about the court order, so to speak, that she is not going to allow me to speak to my daughter by Skype every 2 weeks, and she is not going to allow me to see my daughter, to have custody of my daughter, once every 6 months. And there has been no explanation for this. She just says this is her new position and I can talk to her lawyer, which is to say my lawyer can talk to her lawyer. And indeed, yet more money is being spent on lawyers now than ever before. So that will slowly start to unravel and unwind. The other clue to this mystery is that allegedly, and I can only say allegedly, my ex-wife is now having a second child, or at this date I can say most likely she already has a second child, that she became pregnant, presumably with her long-term boyfriend, who is Bulgarian, who's Eastern European, and we know about this entirely from my daughter, that my daughter told us excitedly that she's going to have a new baby brother, and she told us all kinds of details that a young child would not make up about where the baby's going to be sleeping and this kind of thing. I would point out also that she said some of this in front of her adoptive father, my ex-wife's new boyfriend, and he looked incredibly upset by her mentioning it. He was downcast. Oh yeah, you weren't there the first time that happened. Sorry, Melissa you just weren't standing right there. You were elsewhere in the train station when that happened. So I got the impression that if anything, they had tried to coach her not to say that and not to talk about it. And my ex-wife indeed has never mentioned it to me or admitted to me, nor has my ex-wife's boyfriend discussed it with me. It has been suggested to me that there are legal reasons as to why that might be. My ex-wife has refused to divorce me, and that creates certain legal difficulties. Under French law, I think legally, I'm the father of that child. Legally, that's my second child until we get paperwork saying it isn't. A lot of countries are like that. Within the United States, I think it varies from state to state. But if you're married to someone and get pregnant and have a baby, it's presumed to be the legally wedded husband's baby until you take steps not to. So guys, get divorced before you have children or something else. And then the other problem is legally, it means that she's guilty of adultery, and that can matter in court. Yes, it's ridiculous that you've been separated for 5 years and legally something's considered adultery. Was she supposed to live in celibacy all this time? But that is the hot water she has put herself into by refusing to divorce me, refusing to have any kind of amiable resolution and progress. So look, in closing, I got a question on Patreon that didn't insult me or upset me at all. Somebody asking what my perspective is on the divorce in this respect. And it was asking me basically, how do you feel about the fact that your ex-wife is shacked up with someone else, that she has a new boyfriend or new informal husband? And I feel completely positively about that. I didn't divorce my wife, or sorry, I didn't try to get divorced. I didn't initiate the divorce. Let's be clear, I dumped her. And even the legal statements from court state that. She didn't leave me. I made the decision to dump her. But I didn't dump her so that I could control her life forever. No, that's ridiculous. I know a lot of guys have that kind of attitude. I don't want to, be the person who vets or approves or controls her love life. Fundamentally, it would be like, well, if she gets a new job, I'm happy for her taking on the life. She, again, earlier, when she wanted to move to Germany, I would have been positive and supportive of that. If she wants to move to a new country, get a new job, try new things, have a new husband, I would have every reason to be positively inclined and encouraging about that. The problem is precisely the extent to which my ex-wife has made every step of this process combative, dishonest, spiteful, counterproductive. She's done so many things, legally, emotionally, personally, that are simply unforgivable. She's done so many things that serve no purpose except to harm me, and that obviously are going to harm my daughter. And from my perspective, they've now created a very, very strange identity crisis for my daughter. Every home I'm aware of them having, including my ex-mother-in-law's home, I found it striking that they had my daughter's full legal name, like on the doorbell and on the post box. So on the first trip, I was invited to go there, by the way. I was to go there to pick up my daughter and drop off my daughter. And on the fourth trip, again, I went to pick up some toys, briefly saw my ex-mother-in-law. So I just mentioned it's not, I was invited to go to these places at these different times. And of course, at different times, I've been sending checks for child support and that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's so that she can receive legal benefits from the French government or why that is. It's unusual to have a child's full name. And earlier, it was really a baby. The full legal name of a baby on your post office box, where you receive mail. But that's what she's been doing. So you get this full name, and it's my name. It's the name I gave her and my last name next to my ex-wife's name and my ex-mother-in-law's name. I'm like, whoa, okay. So that's always been striking to me. And earlier in the divorce, my ex-wife was trying to blackmail me into signing a document that would give her the legal right to use my family name. So without going into details, it just always seemed bizarre to me. Like, why would you have to force me? It's just weird. What are you doing? So that was not the only thing she was trying to blackmail me into. But I should flesh out if I'm going to say blackmail. So, for example, all of this I can prove in court. All of this I can prove just by showing the emails she wrote. One of the modes of blackmail was of inviting me to see my daughter in Germany and then telling me no, she wouldn't let me see my daughter in Germany unless I signed a series of legal forms that, among other things, would give up any right to see my daughter. But in the list of demands that she wanted me to sign was also signing over the right to use this name. Very strange. So she's made a transition from that to this new fantastical mode of, I guess, trying to take revenge against me, of giving my daughter a new first name, a new family name, and coaching my daughter to believe that she's not my daughter at all. So look, all these things are unforgivable. I said many years ago on this channel, short-term thinking starts to resemble evil. It's incredibly blind. I mean, long-term, how is this going to work out for you? How can you possibly win? How can this turn out well? How can this turn out well for her relationship with her own daughter, with my daughter's relationship with me, with my relationship with her? What you really want in a divorce is what I was offering her at step one. You want someone who's positively motivated to do co-parenting. For one thing, that's a free babysitter. Someone who's positively motivated to contribute to your life financially in terms of time, effort. Someone who's going to be whatever, whether it's once a month or a couple times a year. Someone who's going to collaborate with you. Someone who's going to talk to you positively about the plans for the future and what's going on. You want someone who's positively motivated and contributing. And that was what I was from day one in this divorce. That was what I had to offer. And instead, she's done everything she could to create an invidious situation. Invidious is really the word. And I really have no invidious feelings on my end. If she wants to get married to someone else, if she wants to have a child with someone else, from my perspective, the only thing she owes me is completing the legal paperwork for the divorce. But I guess the reason why she doesn't want to do that is that it would take away from her forever the little bit of a gray area, the little bit of wiggle room she has to do exactly what she's doing now. And that is to stab me in the back over my right to see my daughter, my right to have custody, my right to even talk to her by Skype. The little bit of wiggle room she's been enjoying, the legal privileges she's been abusing by a court process in France that began by ruling in my absence, not informing me, intentionally concealing from me that the court process would begin at all. In this world, guys, there's no justice. But, there's kindness, there's detachment, there's respect, there's dignity. And each and every one of us has to struggle to live a life of dignity, despite a justice system in which there is simply no interest in justice at all.